and welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin, and today I'm going to be talking about my February TBR. So, last year during my short-lived failed blog, I tried out making a TBR for a couple months before I abandoned that project, and what I found out was that for me, TBRs work best when I use them more as a kind of jumping off point with just some books that I definitely want to get to as opposed to planning out my entire month of reads, with exceptions being maybe if there's like some kind of month-long read-along that I'm participating in, then I would do a month-long, but otherwise I kind of use it as a starting point. So all that to say is I believe I have 10 books on this list today, and I definitely plan on and believe I will be reading more than 10 books next month based on how I've been reading the past year. And so there will be more on my wrap-up, but these are the 10 books that for one reason or another I am 100% committing to reading in February. So first off, I'm going to be starting with 2 books that are holdovers from January. I'm about halfway through both, so these are just ones that I know I'm not going to finish up before tomorrow because I'm recording this on January 30th. And so these are 2 books that I will not be finishing in January that I will be finishing in February. The first of those is A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. This is a reread for me. I've been buddy reading this series with my husband because I love these books. I read them in high school. They're one of my favorite unfinished series, and he really loves the TV show, which I've only seen season 1 of. So we both really love them, but it's hard to talk about the series when all of my knowledge is from the book and his knowledge is from the TV show, which the two kind of like depart from each other after season 1 is what I've been told. So he decided he wanted to pick them up and read them. 1, just because he had been interested, and 2, then it could make having discussions about the series a lot easier. So I've been reading them at his pace because I'm just a much faster reader than he is, and his original intention was to do 1 a month, and then he kind of got caught up in grad school starting this month, so we got halfway through this one. I think he's a little farther than halfway, but I'm halfway through and we'll be finishing this in February. The second book that is a holdover from January happens to also be a reread for me, and that is The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. This is the second book in the Wheel of Time series. This is also possibly the rattiest book I own. It's really not indicative of how I treat my books, I swear, but if you'll notice, it's literally missing a chunk here that I haven't lost this chunk, but it's easier to not carry around both chunks when I'm only in one of them. And that was because I was reading this one summer in high school at the lake, and I left it out on the back of the boat in the sun to go back and get like some snacks. And the Georgia sun in late July is really friggin' hot, and it just kind of melted it, and whoop, out popped a chunk of this book. So this is easily the worst condition book I own, and I swear I'm not this bad on my books. But anyway, so I'm rereading this in an attempt to actually finish the series this time. I read the first 7 books in high school plus the prequel book, and then kind of dropped off reading them when I started college just because they took forever to get through in college. And then when books take a really long time for me to get through, I kind of just lose interest and get frustrated that I'm not finishing them. So I put them down until I graduated. I graduated at the end of 2019, and so I'm finally picking them up again to try and do reread of the first 7 and then finish the last 7. And I've had all 14 since high school. Like, I've owned them all forever. So I started this one in January. I'm about halfway through, although again it doesn't look like halfway because I'm missing 200 pages, but it is about halfway, and I hope to finish this in the beginning of February. See if that balances. Okay. So the next category of my TBR is book club and buddy read books, and the first of those is for the Beautifully Bookish Bethany's Patreon book club. And so February's theme was cozy mysteries, and we are reading Evening Bags and Executions by Dorothy Howell. I have never read a cozy mystery before. From what I understand, cozy mystery as a subgenre is usually, I think, more amateur detectives, and as well as I feel like they have a more lighthearted feel to them. Like, I don't think they're actually more lighthearted crime-wise, because I think you can still get murders and stuff in cozy mystery, but I think they're more lighthearted in just the narration style, maybe more kind of small-town vibes, I think. So this is the book we're reading. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what it's about, other than it's a cozy mystery, and I think it has something to do with the Beatles. in it. And there's a little yellow submarine here. I think the Beatles is relevant. Maybe not the literal band, but like a Beatles themed party or something is somehow relevant in this. But yeah, excited to give cozy mystery a try as a genre, and maybe I'll like it, maybe I'll don't. But I enjoy talking about books and book clubs, so even if I don't like it, I'll be able to talk about it with the book club, and that'll be fun. The next book club book I'm reading in February is Black Sun by Rebecca Ronhorst, which is the Shelf Space pick for February. And Shelf Space is a book club run by Jessie May, where she has a guest host every month. And this is the book for February. I also don't know a ton about what this book is about, other than I've heard a lot of great things about it. Several booktubers I watch read it in 2020, and it came out in 2020. So several booktubers I follow read it last year and absolutely loved it. I've only heard amazing reviews, and so I figured that's kind of good enough for me. When it was, I originally intended on waiting longer to read it, just because I generally try to wait. Originally I was gonna wait longer to read it, just because this is the only book out so far, and I will sometimes start series before they're finished, but I tend to want to wait till they're finished, unless it's a favorite author or something that got a lot of buzz, or a book club book. So, because it's a book club book and got a lot of buzz, I decided to go ahead and pick it up. I believe it's based around Columbian. Yeah, it's inspired by the pre-Columbian Americas, and so that sounds really interesting. So, I hope I love it as much as everyone else has loved it. The third book club book I'm reading in February is The Deep by Rivers Solomon. I'm reading this as part of the Our Fantasies Feminism in Fantasy book club, the FIF book club, which is one of several book clubs that is run monthly on Our Fantasy. And so this book is a novella, and I believe it's based off of a rap song, I think. I don't really know rap music at all, so not sure, but I think that's what I've heard about it. And I believe it has to do with mermaids, or maybe not mermaids, but women who were thrown off of the slave ships crossing the ocean, and kind of, they've like, when they were thrown off, they survived in the ocean and now have this underwater society. I think maybe they turned into mer people. As you can see, I'm only sort of sure what it's about, but I've also heard good things about this one, so I'm looking forward to it. I've heard the audiobook is really good. It has Daveed Diggs narrating, who was in Hamilton. So if you're into audiobooks, maybe pick that up. I don't tend to listen to audiobooks, so I'll probably just read this one on my ebook format. So yeah, we'll look into this one. The one buddy read I have this month is Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is book one of the Green Bun Saga. This is a buddy read over on the Shelf Space Discord. And this is a fantasy mob story where the illicit substance dealt with in this world is Jade. And I think Jade gives you some kind of magical powers, or like enhances your already possessed magical powers. So I've heard mostly good things, and the one or two people I've heard talk about this who didn't like it, when they talk what they didn't like about it still sound like something I like the whole mob city political intrigue angle seems to be what some people didn't love, just because they aren't into that kind of narrative, but that sounds really cool to me, so looking forward to picking this one up. My next category of books for February is library books, just because these are getting prioritized, just because they have due dates on them, and most of these have people who are waiting on them, so I can't renew them. So first up, we have two ebooks that came in recently. I have Love Your Life by Sophie Kinsella. This is an adult romance book. Sophie Kinsella is, I wouldn't call her a favorite author of mine, but she is one of my most read authors, especially in the romance genre. I got hooked onto her years ago after the Confessions of a Shopaholic movie. When I got a little bit older, I read that entire series of books that she wrote, and I've read most of her other standalones. And I don't love all of her books. Like, her books get more 3 stars than probably they should for someone I read so often, but I do enjoy picking up her new book, because she generally has a new book out every year. And so she always has kind of quirky heroines, and they're just kind of fun candy reads. So this one is about a girl who I believe goes on a writer or artist retreat, where they use fake names and she meets someone else either on her retreat or a neighboring retreat, and they kind of get to know each other, and then they have to leave this retreat and go back to their real lives and their real names, and so they don't know each other's names. I think they have to kind of find each other. So I've had this on hold since October, so I am excited to finally get to it, and I think it'll just be a fun time. I don't really have many expectations when I go into Sophie Kinsella books, so we'll see how it is. The next ebook I have out from the library is Love and Olives by Jenna Evans Welch. This is a young adult contemporary, and I don't generally read much young adult contemporary anymore. I feel like I've kind of aged into adult romance. However, this is the third book in a series that I started a couple years ago that I think is pretty cute, so I wanted to finish out the series. They're all companion novels, just I think following like a friend from the main character of the previous book kind of companion. And this one follows a girl, and I believe her dad is like an archaeologist or something in Greece, and she gets the chance to join him on like an archaeological dig or like just for the summer or something, and I think she falls in love with like someone she meets in Greece, and that's kind of all I know about it. But all of her books are kind of destination YA contemporaries, which is probably why I quite like them, because I like traveling, and especially right now when I've been missing traveling, I'm looking forward to indulging myself in some book travel. So next from the library I have Layla by Colleen Hoover. I'm not 100% sure what genre this book is. I think it's romantic suspense, but I know Colleen Hoover usually writes romance, but occasionally she's had books that aren't quite romance that still get categorized as romance, so I'm not sure if this isn't romance, it's just suspense, or if it's a blend. Unsure exactly, but it's about a girl named Layla who gets in this accident, and I'm not sure if she's like permanently disabled or just kind of has a long recovery ahead of her that she's in the middle of, but her partner, boyfriend, husband takes her on a vacation to an inn where they had first met as a kind of a getaway, and once they get there, some strange things start happening, which is the suspense side, but I think there is a little bit of a romance side, because I know there's also a second girl involved that I think the partner starts to fall for while they're at this inn. So I'm not actually sure how I think I'll like this, because that kind of sounds like it's going to be a cheating storyline, which I am not into at all. But it might not be. Who knows? I haven't read it yet. I haven't read any reviews of it of people talking about it. But I decided to pick this up because I read her book Regretting You back in November. It was the first Colleen Hoover book I'd read, and I absolutely loved it. It was so good. So I wanted to try another one by her, and I just thought, let's try her newest one, see how it is. So, see how I like this. Another book from the library I am prioritizing is The Crimson Campaign by Brian McClellan. This is the second book in the Powder Maid trilogy. I read the first book, The Promise of Blood, back in December, because it was the Shelf Space Book Club pick of December, and I enjoyed it. It was one of those books that was problematic but fun. Not problematic in like an offensive way, just in it had some issues in the writing and story, but I enjoyed it. I still thought it was fun. So it intrigued me and hooked me enough to pick up the second one to see if I like it. This is billed as a flintlock fantasy, and that's definitely true, but it also has another just as important element of kind of the gods walk among us storyline with some magic in it that was very unexpected book, because that's just not what I hear talked about it at all when people talk about it. So definitely know that going in, that it's not a pure flintlock fantasy. And there are probably other examples of more purely flintlock fantasy, if that's specifically what you want. But so I'm looking forward to this one. The first one starts right as a revolution is happening, which I thought was a unique narrative choice as opposed to, I feel like generally stories end in the revolution and the whole series is the build-up. So this one is kind of all the aftermath. And so I have the third one also out from the library, but I'm not 100% convinced I'll get there. Again, I thought the first one was fun but had problems, so we'll see where the second one takes it before I decide if I want to read the third one. And the last category on my TBR is nonfiction. I challenged myself to read one nonfiction book a month this year. I don't have any guidelines on what kind of nonfiction or anything. I'm not looking for like a specific subject, just kind of general, whatever sounds interesting. So this month, I'm planning on reading The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. This is a story about, I think, the 1920s? A little earlier, First World War. During the First World War, a group of women who worked at a factory that used radium to paint clock faces or watch faces because it glowed. And back then they didn't totally understand the negative properties of exposing people to radium, and so that kind of is the scandal that happened in history that this book follows, which is when a lot of the women who worked at this factory started getting ill, and the factory was trying to cover it up, and this was this big scandal in history, and so that's kind of what this book covers. So I think this sounds interesting. I like historical books around the world wars, and I think books that focus on women from those times are especially interesting, so looking forward to picking this one up. So that's my February TBR, kind of my jump starting point for the month. If any of you have read any of these books, let me know in the comments what you thought, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!